just roll the clips already?
With my dog. Duke.
Hi.
Hi.
I really hope you guys enjoyed that interview. I know I enjoyed filming it. Shanti. Hey guys, thank you so much for joining this episode. I'm sorry for all like the little cancellations. Have a lot of high school stuff going on. Just a lot of programs and clubs and activities, so it's gonna take up a lot of my time. I promise that there will be 2 extra episodes at some point throughout the next few months, but there will be those 2 makeup episodes. Next month I'm hoping to start right back up, but if I don't, obviously there will be makeup episodes. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm really excited for you guys to watch this interview. It's my first solo interview I've ever done, and I'm really proud of it. So I really hope you guys enjoy it. It's with Shanti Hershenson. She is a author, and she is my age. She has released a ton of books, and I'm so excited, and I hope you guys really enjoy this interview.
Hi, Shanti. Thank you so much for coming on. This is, like I said earlier, this is our first recorded interview, and I'm so excited to have you on. Just to start out, I would just like you to introduce who you are and kind of what you do.
Of course. So, first off, my name is Shanti. I think everyone already knows that. And I write books. I've been writing professionally since I was 12 years old, but for about as long as I can remember, I've just loved writing. When I was a little kid, I used to create these little stories. And then as I grew older, particularly during the pandemic, when I had so much time, is when I actually started writing novels. And once I published the first one, once I began my career, I haven't stopped since. This is like my favorite thing to do. My days are not complete if I don't write. And really, it's like the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Awesome. And yeah, I came across you just scrolling on TikTok because it's usually my main form of reaching out to people. And I came across you and I was so like, it was so awesome to see because I'm 15 years old and it's something that we don't really see is young authors actually getting published and getting that recognition that a lot of young authors deserve because there's so much, it's so awesome that like, we have so much creativity. Young authors have so much creativity, but they don't really get recognized because really the standard is that older people are more mature, which means they can write better books, which is so untrue.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of the standard. And you having so many published books and so many books written is really just breaking that standard. And that's something that I find so incredibly amazing and so important for young people who are also writers who want to get published. And for just to kind of talk about it, how was that publishing process like for you? Like, how did that go? How did your first book being published go?
So I have a really funny story about that because if I'm being honest, the first book I published was sort of an accident. When I was in the 6th grade, this is actually before the pandemic, but these weren't novels. These were, I don't even think I have them up on my shelf behind me. They're not that good. But I wrote these 2 novellas and I wrote them with one of my good friends. And we really wanted a printed copy because, you know, when you write something and you edit it, you're so proud of it. So like the best feeling is just getting to hold that physical book and then getting to read it. So that's what I really wanted to do. And I looked through a couple different ways to print the book. I think I have a hardcover of the book somewhere, and I believe that was not ever published. But I don't know. Honestly, it's like it was such a strange time for me. I don't entirely remember. But what I do remember is I went on Amazon's Kindle Direct Publishing. And there I was like, oh, this would be a really good way to get a printed book. So I went through like all of the forms. I wrote a little really bad description of the book and I uploaded my cover. And then I realized, oh, this is publishing. This book is going to go on Amazon and other places too. Honestly, to me, that sounded really cool at the time. So I just like threw it on Amazon, bought some copies, and I marketed it a little because like, hey, this is cool. I just published a book. But not much ended up coming of that because I didn't know a lot about it at the time. I made like an Instagram post and that was it. And then I think when we published the second one, we just did it for fun because we wanted the printed copies. However, I have not unpublished those books yet. They are still on Amazon and they're on my author profile. They're too good. It's just too funny not to remove them. But then actually, when the pandemic hit and I was stuck at home, I was like, I want to start writing a really long book, and I really want to publish this too, and then I want this to really be the start of my career. So I started writing that book. It was really, 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 really long. The first draft was 250,000 words and 800 pages long. I have that actual printed 800-page book. It's one of these. This one. And it was hard. What ended up happening is I had to split it into 3 separate books because that's just too long. But as I was writing, I kept researching the process, and I learned about pre-orders and how to really launch a book more successfully than just throwing it on Amazon and making an Instagram post. So really, I already knew how to do it. I just had to learn how to do it better.
Yeah, and I've heard, I mean, on my other show, we've interviewed a lot of different people, and we interviewed a lot of different people who went through the producing process of music and how that was so hard. And when interviewing you already, I can see the kind of similarities between publishing and producing, and how sometimes the first time you do it, it can go wrong, but then the next time you keep learning throughout, and that process is really similar. And just going on with this, a book that I saw, one of the first books I saw on your page was your Biome Lock books. And I just kind of want to know, like, kind of just for the people watching, kind of what those are and how those kind of came about.
Yeah, so Biome Lock was that first book that was super long, and that was the first novel I ever written. That was also, I feel like, the first book that I really tried on, because those previous 2 books, I mean, they were for fun. It wasn't, they were kind of, I feel like it's like practice for like the real thing. So Biome Lock was that first book I wrote. It's about, this world. I guess it's like, it's hard to explain, but it's like basically aliens have invaded our world, and they have sent the humans to live in these separate like biomes, and you get sent to a biome based on how you acted as a child, and then you have to live there for the rest of your life and survive, and you can't communicate with any of the other biomes, and basically everyone's miserable. So the main character, his name is Griffin, and he is sent to what he believes to be the worst biome of them all, the Dark Forest. And he has to first off learn how to survive amid illness, and he has to learn how to get food for himself, and he meets a lot of really nice people in there as well. But then he starts feeling a connection to this girl from the grasslands biome whom he knew briefly when he was still a child with everybody else. And what he soon realizes is there is a way to get between the biomes, and he can now connect with more people. And as he starts to kind of figure himself out, he realizes that he can actually do something about the misery that they're all going through, and maybe that they should try to get to a different biome and really try to escape.
Yeah, I am a huge book nerd, so like that definitely, like, that sounds so interesting and so good. And then it's so cool to hear that you came up with something like that, especially with how young you are. Like, that really proves that the authors can come up and create something beautiful and something so amazing that can be interesting. And I just find it so awesome that you are a successful author at your age, and you are writing these books that just sound so intriguing and so amazing to, just read. And one thing that I just think that's so cool, like, I don't even know how you came up with that. Probably definitely cannot be me. I mean, I'm creative, but not that creative. That is insane. And something I just wanted to lead into was I saw on your TikTok page, you recently attended the San Diego Festival of Books. And I just kind of want to know, 1, what that is, and 2, how you kind of got into that.
Yeah, so the San Diego Festival of Books is this really large book fair. They have a lot of authors doing panels and speaking. They also have a lot of authors simply selling their books. And what I got to do is I got to basically sit at a booth all day, talk to people, and sell my books. It was my second year in a row doing it. I've also done the Bay Area Festival of Books too, it's basically the same thing. And I love doing these events because I get to meet so many different people, and they're all like, they don't come specifically to meet me typically. They come just to meet a bunch of different authors, and they come to buy books. So really, I get to meet total strangers, and then I get to like talk to them. I also get to meet a lot of teenagers who maybe want to start writing their books, and maybe some of them have heard of me before, but a lot of them haven't. So then really, like, I get to see people like who are gonna like read my books for the very first time. And it's these events, they can be tricky, they can be really grueling. You know, you're sitting in a booth for 6 hours a day. Typically I don't eat much during those events because I just have to get my parents to like get me some food, but then it's hard to eat amid like talking to people. So typically it's like it can be super draining. Not every interaction is positive. Sometimes I have people who just come up and they like ask me a million questions just to try to trip me up. But other times I just have these beautiful interactions with people who maybe are struggling to write their first book, or maybe just like younger kids who, you know, need a new book to read. And that's really why I keep doing them again and again. Because like, sure, like selling books is fun. It's good to get the books in the hands of readers and get that exposure, but it's also really nice just to be able to talk to people.
Yeah, and within that whole thing that you were talking about, you mentioned that you've dealt with some pretty tough situations with some pretty tough people, and unfortunately, that's such a big part of being in industries, no matter what industry it is, being a singer, being an author. It's kind of something everybody deals with, and I just kind of want to know how you deal with that, kind of how that experience was like for you and how you kind of coped with that, because I know, especially for me, people can say some things and it sticks with you for a really long time.
Yeah, personally for me, really the only way to deal with it is just kind of brush it off a little. After a while, I start to notice that it's really a lot of the time the people that are going to come up and be impolite, they don't really have anything against you. They're just very insecure with themselves. Maybe, you know, they haven't been able to write. Maybe they're really struggling. And unfortunately, the way that they're kind of coping with that is just to take it out on someone else who maybe is doing what they want to do. Maybe they're just, you know, angry. So really just understanding that it's nothing that you've done wrong is the best way to handle it. There are always going to be haters out there, whether it's in like Amazon reviews or Goodreads or just random people who are just going to come up to you and be like, I don't want to buy your books. This looks stupid. But it's like you just have to kind of accept that it's going to happen. It's like a rite of passage.
Mm-hmm.
I know some other teen authors who have done these kinds of events, and that's like what I said to them is like, it's a rite of passage if someone comes up and starts like saying things. Like, it's unfortunately going to happen. It shouldn't happen. It's like if you also find some humor in it.
Yeah, and I love that. And I love that you said you can also find some humor in it, because one thing that especially that runs in my family is the way we cope with things is we just love to make jokes and just kind of laugh about it. And I love that you said that you can put humor into it, because I feel like sometimes a lot of people look down on, like, you know, putting humor into things. Like if like my dad got into a car accident one time and him and his friends were cracking jokes the entire time they were on their way to the hospital. And a lot of people look down on that, but for a lot of people it's nicer to find that kind of humor in it, because that's just, it makes it kind of go away, and kind of makes it not go away, but just makes it feel a little lighter, especially mentally.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I know that you've written a ton of books, and it's insane. I've mentioned it throughout this entire interview. The amount of books you've written is insane. And I just kind of want to know what your favorite book that you've written, published or not published, is.
I think like my favorite and probably the best book I've ever written is this one. I happen to have a copy like right in front of me, and then there's one behind me. This book, I honestly, it started out as a screenplay for my creative writing class, and it was around like 45 pages, and I had a ton of fun writing the screenplay. It was the first one I ever wrote. It was something completely new to me, and because it was so new to me, it was just really, really fun, and I really loved the characters. But once I was done, and I had edited it like a million times, it was insane, like the amount of drafts I had. But once I was done, I had nothing to do with it, because unless I wanted to produce it as a short film, there really isn't much I can do. But what ended up happening is a couple months later, I was like, I need a new book today, and personally, I think this could make a really good book. And I just started writing it. I finished it pretty quickly compared to my other books. In the sense that I think this one, it's actually shorter. It's around 100 pages when some of these other ones up here are like 300 to 400, and it took me only 2 weeks to do that first draft. And really, I was writing like 3,000, 4,000 words a day with school. I just couldn't stop working on this book. And then by the time I was done, I quickly went and I actually ordered a physical copy of the book just so I could like go through and read it as like it was the physical book, and then like go through and edit, and then I had to go through multiple rounds. But every single time I finished a draft, I wanted to do another one. And that's really rare because with most of the books I write, after the first draft, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to edit this. I am so done. And then even after like the second and the third draft, I just like never want to touch the book ever again. But with this one, I kept coming back and I kept making it better and I kept really trying. And I think that was one thing that was so special about it is I just like couldn't stop reading it. So now finally I am done with the last draft. I am not going to read it again for a while, except when it's published. It comes out on October 15th, and it's just like it's such a special book to me that I'm really scared to share it with other people, but I'm also really excited.
Yeah, and I know that's one thing that we wanted to touch base on was your book release. And I just kind of want, if you could, just talk about where people, like, what day it is, maybe what time, just kind of where people can find that when it does release. Because, I mean, this book is so important to you, and I want to make sure that any viewers that are interested in buying the book can kind of know that information.
Of course. So the book comes out on October 15th, which is also my birthday. It'll just release right at midnight. So, and if you pre-order the book, the ebook, then you'll get it literally like the second it comes out. And first off, it'll be available on Amazon, but it'll also be available if you just look it up on other websites, maybe Barnes & Noble, maybe like, I don't know, I found them on Walmart at one point. So they'll just appear in random places. And if you look up the book, if you look it up maybe on the website of your local bookstore, it might come up. But really just kind of keep looking, and you will for sure find them on Amazon.
Awesome. And also, just for any other books that you have, is kind of Amazon the best go-to for those books to buy?
I think so. It's the quickest. You can also get the ebooks there. But honestly, just if you keep looking, you will find them. They've come up in the most random places. They're basically now everywhere you buy books online, and then in some local stores, depending on where you live.
And just to kind of finish off and top off the interview, I just wanted to know what it felt like when someone actually bought one of your books for the first time. Kind of what was that feeling, and how does it feel now that people buy your books like all the time?
So I vaguely remember like the first like few sales I got for like the first books I published. It was scary. I think it's still, especially like when I'm in person at those festivals and someone's buying them, like, oh my gosh, what if they enjoy it? I mean, what if they don't enjoy it? I really hope they do. And it's like there's a bit of nervousness behind each sale, but it's also really exciting because some new person is going to get exposed to my work, and hopefully that means they're going to go read more books, and then I have a new reader.
And how does that kind of compare to now when you're selling books? Is it still kind of the same feeling, or is it a little bit more comfortable?
Definitely a little more comfortable now because I've been doing this for so long now and I've sold so many books that it's kind of like it's more exciting, if anything. Now I'm so used to it. I know, they might like it, they might not. I really can't know, but I've kind of come to accept that.
That's awesome. And thank you so much for coming on and agreeing to do this. You were so good. And I love that. I really want to get your name out there, and I really want to get your books out there because they just sound so interesting, especially Biome Walk is just stuck in my brain. That book sounds so awesome. And so I just want to get your name out there and kind of get your books out there because of how young you are. It's truly amazing how many sales you have and how many books you have published, and even how many books you don't have published that are written is just insanely awesome. And thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
I really hope you guys enjoyed that interview. I know I enjoyed filming it. Shanti is amazing, so if you haven't already, make sure you go follow her. And TikTok's just Shanti Henderson. It's usually where you can find her. Like in the interview, she said you can find her on Amazon or anything like that. I really enjoyed that interview, and I hope that you guys did as well. Like I said, I am hoping to start back up, and I'm really sorry for all the cancellations. I really am. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and hopefully I'll see you next week. Look out for the 2 pop-up episodes, and I may replace the episodes with just a little discussion of a live, but we'll see how that goes. Thank you guys so much. I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful night, and yeah, have a good night.